And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Monday morning's flying weather graphic showing a lot of IFR with that system out over the Bering Sea spreading up into all of the southwest interior here northward by tomorrow morning to the southern Seward Peninsula and up the lower Yukon River Valley through the Bering Strait, extending back to the southwest just about onto the Pribilof Islands. Otherwise, to the south and east, we've got a lot of VFR and marginal VFR now for the eastern Arctic coast, and some IFR here for the eastern North Gulf Coast, southeast or eastern Copper River Basin into the northern Panhandle, VFR down to the south. For the afternoon, you got marginal VFR spreading over the southern southeast coast there, stays IFR up to the north, and south central Alaska, actually south and east of the Alaska Range, VFR all the way down into Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island there, and the eastern interior also VFR, but this area is spreading eastward here and northeastward into the Brooks Range and extending back to the southwest there across the Pribilofs, marginal VFR, Alaska Peninsula to Adak. And then for the Tuesday morning hours here, this area starts to become a little more thinner here, but still a lot of IFR up over the northwest, or up over the north central part of the state. And a little bit sliding north of the Brooks Range here into the eastern North Slope and Arctic coast and into the Tanana Valley as well for Tuesday morning. Southern Alaska, good VFR from Bristol Bay to the northern Panhandle. Then for the afternoon on Tuesday, this area of IFR moves up and banks up along the Alaska Range, covering the Tanana Valley, especially areas from Haisley to Nenana, and on up to Fairbanks there, up to about probably the White Mountains, and then some areas of IFR over the eastern interior, eastern Arctic coast there. VFR for the Panhandle and all of southern Alaska, Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island. Not too bad out over the Aleutians and Bering Sea, just marginal VFR, and also with some VFR, especially up here to the north. Passes Anatuvik starting out, VFR becoming IFR into the afternoon toward evening. And Adigan, downward trend as well, maybe only becoming marginal VFR in the later part of the day. Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR. Rainy VFR. Windy VFR becoming marginal VFR, especially on the north side there. And for Isabel, holding VFR the entire day. And for Mentasta here, VFR as well. Tanita, VFR. And Chilkoot and White, VFR. Let's see. Tanita and Chilkoot and White VFR. Something happened to Portage, but it'll be VFR as well tomorrow. And moving on to freezing levels here, we've got 2,000 feet coming northward here with some milder southerly flow right up along the coast of the Panhandle. At the surface, still south of Kodiak Island tomorrow morning. And much warmer conditions, good southwest flow pulling 2,000 feet right up to the Yukon Delta coast, Nunivak Island, 6,000 feet there up into Atka Island. And as far as icing goes, we've got a band of considerable moderate rime icing pushing northeastward here into the central interior, almost down to the Alaska Range, back to the western Arctic coast, and the second area here over the southern Panhandle. And the jet stream here showing 105 knot westerlies there cutting across the northern southeast coast. Northwest or north-northwesterlies, 85 knots through the central interior. Light winds under high pressure over Bristol Bay. And then on the northwest side of that ridge, good southwest flow here across the Bering Sea up to 120 knots. 9,000 feet, much the same pattern. Southwest winds here up 70 to 75 knots right into the west coast areas. Higher pressure, light winds, Alaska Peninsula, Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island. And northerly 60 knots across the Gulf and then turning southwest at 40 knots into the Panhandle. Lighter winds at 3,000 feet here for both the southeast coast areas. In fact, all of the southeast interior with the strongest winds out to the west and northwest, up to 65 knots there right across the Point Hope, Cape Lisburne area. 55 knots blowing into Norton Sound. And then 45 knot winds here right up into the southwest coast. Turbulence, considerable moderate turbulence there from the western Brooks Range, Seward Peninsula, northwest interior down into the lower Yukon River there with light to isolated moderate turbulence for the Yukon Delta and Nunivak Island area on up across the Brooks Range.